Yeah, that is fundamental to our thinking on innovation, and I refer to von Hippel's work out of MIT, where 82% of all industrial innovation takes place with the user, not with the supplier. I mean, this is something that was kind of surprising to a lot of people, where he came to the conclusion that the user was better at innovating than the supplier for two reasons. One is they understood the problem better, and secondly, they had more aligned motivation. And this is fundamental to our thinking. We do not do innovation and then bring it to our customer. Everything has to be co-created, because you cannot do this without in that collaborative environment with our partners, with our customers, with our suppliers, with our, it really has to be that open environment for sure.
I'd just add one, just a second. I would just request you to read the book by Clayton Christensen on Innovator's Dilemma and find how if you keep listening to your customers too much also you fail.
That's absolutely also a risk, and that's again the paradox. The innovator's dilemma is a real phenomenon, but we have to be able to do both.
I'd just like to just echo the thought and simply say, absolutely, it is the customer. I just want to give an example to the floor. In India, the affordability plank is really very, very important when we offer services. And for more and more people to have access to information and communications, it was necessary to address the affordability question. And the way we went about this innovation was, it's more than a year now, we introduced a product into the marketplace, which by now at least those who are here will probably be quite familiar with. We call it a lifetime. It's a lifetime product that said $20, you pay one time and you got a phone for life. And later on what we said is not only $20, but you can then split the payments over 12 months. But what this immediately did is it changed the mindset of the customer. The customer said, I finally got access to communication for the rest of my life. I don't have to pay a single paisa until, of course, I need to make a call, but somebody can always reach me because incoming is always free. What this did in the country was we hit a point of inflection in India. And beyond, once we introduced this product is when India then overtook China on a monthly net add basis. Today we're adding almost 7 million subscribers every month. China has flattened out approximately at 6. But just this one innovation. And the reason was we kept on listening to the customers' question around affordability. And now I'm really talking of the dabbawalas, the scooter walas, the sabzi walas, I mean, everybody who's out in the street. And this has changed it. So I couldn't agree, I completely agree with you. I couldn't agree more.
Prakash, what?
Behind you. It's behind you.
Yeah. We have time for about 2 or 3 short questions.
Yeah, I have a question for Nick. In your innovation exercises, have you looked at doing an exercise on what the livelihoods for the 21st century are going to be? What will 6 billion people be doing to add value?
So we haven't actually studied 6 billion people. That's an interesting exercise. But we have thought a lot about where and what and how things are going to change, how work is going to shift, and how value is going to be created in the 21st century. So we do have a number of studies that are actually attempting to try to calibrate a little better. We actually do believe that when the young people in the 21st century, finally get into the marketplace, there's going to be a big change in what they're looking for, what they expect. Remember I talked about openness, the open standard thing? They're much more facile with openness than we are. They're very willing and very eager to build on each other's work in a very, very fast and adaptive fashion. They are much more multitasking, than we are. None of these things bother them. They have multiple devices in each hand, at any given moment. We worry a lot about the constructive years and what's informing them. In many parts of the world, there's a technology blight, so we've got to try to find a way to get technology to that part of the world to kind of bring it up. But in other parts of the world, there's an incredible surplus of technology. Game boxes that they boggle your mind. You could hold these game boxes in your hand, and 10 years ago that was the equivalent of a supercomputer. What are you doing with all of that? How's that forming your thinking and your expectations, for when you come in to the marketplace? So it's an excellent point. We worry a lot about this. We know very well that we're actually seeing the progress as these people are working their way through the pipeline, and coming into the workforce and into the business force. And those demands are going to be much different than the demands that we're faced with today. So it's a paradigm of opposites here that we have to kind of deal with. We have the underprivileged and the underserved on one hand, and we have the incredibly rich and the incredibly well-positioned, technology-rich is what I mean, on the other hand, and the marketplace is everything in between. So it's very exciting to be able to take things from up here and figure out in a cost-effective way how can you move them down here, and how do you do that? And I love coming here because every time I come to India, I find something else new to do for a rupee a day. I mean, like how do you get it that cost-effective to be able to make that kind of a difference? So these polar opposites, they kind of keep us going. They give us a great palette for innovation here in the 21st century.
Right. And this may well be the last. I know there are many more, but we have to lead this
is a
all.
question initially for Nick, but also for others if they'd like to join in. First of all, I've got to say I think that everything that is in this tenor of this panel is absolutely right. So my question is this, this is NASSCOM, the main focus of NASSCOM, and most of the discussions at this conference is about, traditional, or whatever you want to call it, IT outsourcing and business process outsourcing. And in a certain sense, innovation is an activity or a set of processes that's quite specific in an organization. But when you look at all the other things that ITO and BPO are concerned about, those are not innovation processes. They're other kinds of processes. So my question to you is, do you have any thoughts about how this thinking about innovation, what are the implications of this for the future, not the future of the innovation processes for ITO and BPO,
right,
but for the future of how we do ITO and BPO, number one, as an industry, and number two, the implications for the future architecture and structure of that industry, or those industries?
Yeah, I'll give a crack and then everybody else.
Very good
Everybody
question to
else
end
has got
with. It's a very good question to end
Everybody else
with.
got an opinion. So I mean, on the underlying technologies and the architecture, which is your second question, let me start there. I mean, I think it's becoming abundantly clear to us, what we need to do to build this facilness into enterprises to benefit from BPO or BPDS, whatever you might call it. We know that architectures are important. We know this SOA, this service-oriented architecture, is just so critical to be driving these enterprise standards in order to allow you to have the opportunity to participate. So no doubt about it that we understand the technology base, to allow that to happen, and then get you, to software as a service, in the ultimate as a desired output. To your first